After 5 hours of baseball, including a 1-hour rain delay in Pittsburgh, the Reds' road trip moves on to Citi Field in New York. Last night it was a smiling side of the scoreboard as the Reds took 2 of 3 from the Pirates. Can they continue their winning ways on the road? We'll find out next on Fox Sports Ohio as the Reds take on the New York Mets. Hi, hello, and welcome to New York, everyone. Along with the crafty left-hander Chris Welch and Jim Day, I'm George Grand. Long road trip, yes, long game last night, but Chris, the good news is you got the big guy on the mound today.
Well, you knew that going into last night and how long that night was going to be, that Johnny Cueto can answer a lot of question marks, and a lot of answers out there about Johnny Cueto are, how is your arm, Johnny? How does your elbow feel? Now, they've given him a lot of time off between starts. They've done this one other time this year, and he came back and threw the ball very well. He feels like he's going to be at 100%. I expect no different. And with Johnny Cueto as Johnny Cueto, you're going to see this type of a performance out of him. When you give him 6 days rest plus, since 2001, he's 9-2 with a 1.4 run average, and that is one of the best things you're going to see in all of baseball. Cueto with a lot of rest. One of the best things you'll see in the New York Mets uniform in baseball is Noah Syndergaard, this 22-year-old, has one of the liveliest fastballs in baseball. You're not kidding about that. He was one of the top prospects with the Toronto Blue Jays, and they made that big deal a few years ago with Dickey and a couple of others going up to Toronto, and they got a really good arm out of him. He averages about 98 miles an hour on the fastball. He's got a curveball and a changeup. If the Reds are too aggressive at the plate against Syndergaard, he may strike out a dozen players. So they may want to sit back a little bit, short swing him, and maybe take the advice that Marlon Bird gave everybody the other night when he was hitting off a very hard-throwing pitcher. Loosen your hands a little bit and swing fast, not hard. Well, it worked for Marlon Bird, a home run. In fact, it's worked for the Reds. Of late, they have been red hot. Talk about getting the offense cranked up, Chris. Well, you're right. I mean, when these guys start to go, it seems like it's contagious. And it's not only one guy, it's not only Frazier, but it's everybody. And this is what makes a team so dangerous when they begin to hit a little bit, and this ball club is beginning to hit. You're getting unsung heroes. You're getting a guy like Brandon Phillips last night hitting a home run. He's not a home run hitter. But the little things like that are what bring the team together. Let me tell you, after hanging around all night last night after a rain delay, if you lose that ball game, it's a completely different attitude. But everybody got on the bus to play, and they were happy. They couldn't wait to get to New York. So I think this is a good thing the way this offense is going right now. No batting practice for the Reds so far, but they hope that Brandon Phillips and the rest of the crew can start swinging at the start of this one. JD will have more when we return to Citi Field.
Citi Field in New York, set for a 3-game weekend set. Reds and Mets is coming up on Fox Sports Ohio. I'm Jim Day. What a night it was for Cincinnati last night, and particularly for Brandon Phillips. He did it with the glove, and he did it with the bat. We've grown to expect the defense from Brandon, and he turned it in again in the bottom of the 8th last night. We've seen the behind-the-back flips, but, folks, this is a behind-the-back throw. That's a mustard on it right there. 4-6-3 double play with Eugenio Suarez. Then the top of the 13th inning, solo shot up of Rob Scahill. Phillips' first extra innings home run of his career. It turned out to be the game winner. And that leads us to tonight's T-Mobile game changer. Brandon Phillips likes a big stage, and he likes the big stage against the Mets. Career at the New York Mets, a 29-game hitting streak. Now, keep in mind, he's played 29 career road games against the Mets. So every game he's played, either at the old Shea Stadium or Citi Field, he's gotten at least one hit in the game. 350 average over that time, 5 home runs, 27 runs driven in, and he's closing on Luis Castillo, who had 32 straight as a visitor against the Mets. So Brandon Phillips, the second longest streak against the Mets all time. Incredible numbers. Reds hope to take a bite out of the Big Apple. Johnny Cueto goes to the hill. Reds, after a series victory against the Pirates, looking for an opening game series victory tonight.
Being brought to you by Cincinnati USA Regional Tourism Network. Stay close to CincinnatiUSA.com. By Chevy. Check out our award-winning lineup only at your Tri-State Chevy dealer. And by Skyline Chili. Hey, feeling good? It's Skyline time. Welcome to Citi Field in New York City, Flushing, New York. Just a stone's throw away from the old ballpark, Shea Stadium, backed up against it. Very similar to what happened in Cincinnati when the old ballpark was removed and half of it was cut down as the new ballpark was built. Here, the Mets have been outstanding at home, 26-11 at home, but 11-26 on the road. Let's check the starting lineup for Brian Price and the Cincinnati Reds, brought to you by Meyer. Brandon Phillips, the hero last night with the glove in the bat, as JD just told you, will lead it off. Votto bats second. Todd Frazier, hometown hero, in the 3 spot. Jay Bruce hits cleanup. Ryan Pena, Suarez, Dominguez, Cueto, and Hamilton. That's 1 through 9, your Red starting lineup. And Chris, we've been blessed to watch Aroldis Chapman and his fastball, but the electric Noah Syndergaard's fastball is just as lethal.
Well, the one thing they've done with Syndergaard is they've decided to make him a starter right from the get-go. He is a big guy. I mean, 6 feet 6 inches tall. They have him listed at 240. He is a weightlifting enthusiast and very, very strong out there, and it comes out of his arm quick, like 98 miles an hour. Slider, changeup. He's got to be around the plate to make it all work.
Brandon steps in tied at the bag at third is Ruben Tejada. Back at first is the first baseman, Duda.
Well, here's what he throws, and the average is 97 on his fastball. Throws a lot of them. He's got a curveball and a changeup, not much in the way of a slider. So a 3-pitch pitcher, and right now he's just trying to throw the ball where he can and get it over the plate. Really has no idea as far as throwing it to a quadrant of the strike zone. That comes with experience and innings.
You saw that average fastball. It rounds off to 97. It's 96.9. That's the hardest thrown fastball in the major leagues this year. He's number 1 in that category. And the guy we'll see tomorrow, Matt Harvey, is number 3. So you got some pretty high octane here, Chris.
Well, you know, they really think here that they've got several pitchers coming up, and Matt Harvey obviously one of them, who could be ace of the staff type of pitchers. So it's been 6 years since the Mets have had a winning season. So it's been a long time. They've been able to draft high, make some trades, and they've got really good arms.
Strikeout number 1 for Syndergaard. Phillips retired, 1 away. Talk about high-octane fastball. Syndergaard at the top of the list. Harvey is number 2, and Garrett Cole, who the Reds just saw in Pittsburgh, Chris, is in that top 5 listing as well.
You know, it's always nice to start with this kind of velocity, and I think any general manager would like to say, I'll take any of those arms, but it's how you develop your other stuff, how you get a feel for pitching. Johnny Cueto can throw harder than he's throwing, but he figured out that he doesn't have to throw it 95 or 96 every pitch.
Joey Votto sends one high in the air to center field. Juan Lagares, the Gold Glove winner last year, will haul it in for the second out of the inning. Lagares brilliant in center field. This is a team that, when they're all healthy, they're not bad defensively. They come in today, though, 13th in the league. Just like the Reds, they've been hit by the injury bug. Lagares is in center field, but he's got an elbow problem that will probably require surgery at the end of the year. So the Reds, if the opportunity arises, will take advantage of that gimpy arm in center. But beyond that, the Gold Glove caliber nature of the Mets has been diminished. Frazier first pitch swing and pops it up. Duda coming over, calling, and in fair territory will haul it in. So 1-2-3 for Syndergaard. Frazier pops out. Cueto comes to the mound. Granderson goes to the bat rack when we return. Bad news is some rain moving in for the weekend, so the Reds are hopeful of getting all 3 games here in as they make only one trip to New York City. Johnny Cueto on the mound. Let's check the lineup that Terry Collins will put forth for him. Curtis Granderson will lead it off. He's been hot of late. 11 home runs on the season. He leads it off. Ruben Tejada, normally the shortstop, playing third. David Wright's on the DL. Duda hits in the 3 spot. Michael Kadire, the veteran free agent acquisition this past offseason, hits 4th. Wilmer Flores, Lagares, Lewicki, Syndergaard, the pitcher, hits 8th, and Herrera, the second baseman, hits in the 9th spot. And here's Johnny.
Well, Johnny last pitch on June the 17th. That was an 8-4 win at home against the Detroit Tigers. Went 5 1/3 in that ball game, and the Reds have given him some extra time off. And it really wasn't the fact that he complained about his arm. It's just that before the ball game, he went through some kind of weird body language and kept telling Jeff Pico he's okay, but, you know, it's still all they were a little worried about him.
This drill to right, going back, looking up is Bruce. That's going to be out of here.
Double-decker.
Hit a ton by the leadoff hitter, Curtis Granderson. Granderson, who came off a hot road trip, stretches his hitting streak to 6 straight. 12 home runs on the year. That's his 32nd career leadoff home run, and that moves him past Ian Kinsler into the number 3 spot currently. No doubt here.
Well, Johnny trying to come inside there, a little two-seam fastball, wanted to start off the plate and then become a strike. That was a strike the entire time, ended up inner third, and man, did that sound good coming off the bat.
Well, Granderson, who's been hot of late, continues that stretch. This one skied into center field. Hamilton backs up. He'll squeeze it. And there's your first out. Tejada retired. Take a look at the numbers for Johnny Cueto in terms of earned run average. His career earned run average against the Mets is second only to his earned run average against the Phillies, a little over 4. That's in 10 different starts. Overall, he's 3-3 with that ERA of 4.12. Here at Citi Field, he's 2-2. And Cueto's allowed more of those home runs this year than when he's been right, Chris.
Well, Johnny's been a lot better at home also. I mean, he's very much like the Reds ball club. You know, they don't seem to be able to put much together on the road this year. In fact, when they won last night in extra innings, that was their first road series win all year long. So it's a thing that Johnny Cueto has been lights out at Great American Ballpark, but he gets on the road, he's kind of taken the character of the rest of this ball club. There's a little his version of the quick pitch right there, combined with a changeup, and left it out high. I thought it was interesting the comments that Brian Price made about Johnny Cueto, was saying that when this day comes around when Cueto's going to pitch, that I hope that he's a noticeable difference in his pregame, because he was shaking his arm and going through some body language last time that he just felt like he looked uncomfortable. And that's one of the reasons why they gave him some extra time, assured by Dr. Tim Kremchek that he would be okay if you give him a few more days of rest.
93 miles an hour on that fastball in on the hands. Foul back, 2-2 to Lucas Duda. Duda in at 264, 10 homers, 31 knocked in.
Reds don't shift a lot, but they will shift on this guy. Brandon Phillips playing shallow right field out here.
Great spot down and in, swing and a miss, strikeout number 1 for Cueto. And it's not only how you shift, but how you pitch. And where Cueto went down and in, the only place Duda could hit that if he makes contact is to the right side.
That's a changeup right there, and it's got split action on it. He throws the ball with a regular changeup grip, but the ball, when I say split action, that means it kind of tumbles and goes straight down rather than kind of fading away as a lot of right-handers changeups normally do.
Here's Michael Kadire. Was in the middle of an 0-for-14 skid when he got a base hit at Milwaukee yesterday. Has had a rough go of it for the last 2 weeks, hitting 143. It's had the average drop down to 252. At one point he was over 280. That's the bad news. The good news is he continues to be a bona fide leader in the clubhouse. He's a solid guy to have in your lineup. Against the Reds, you see how he's handled Cincinnati, whether it was in the American League or in Colorado last year. He's had big numbers against the Reds. And against Cueto, he's 1 for 3 for his career. Michael signed as a free agent. He was one of those players that the Reds at one point had targeted in the offseason as a possible bona fide major league at-bat guy that could help in your clubhouse and help on the field as well. This one dribbled to the right side. Phillips has it. And that'll do it. But the leadoff home run by Granderson, his 4th leadoff homer of the year, 32nd of his career. And the Mets lead at 1-0. And the Mets, who come in 13th in the league with 47 errors on the season. Kadire, Lagares, and Granderson in the outfield. Tejada, normally a shortstop, plays third. Flores, normally a second baseman, plays short, and Herrera is your second baseman. Dude is over at first. Glowicki is behind the plate. Travis d'Arnaud back on the disabled list. They do hope eventually to get David Wright back. When Wright comes back, Flores will move to short. Will move to second rather, and Tejada will move to short if and when they get David Wright back. Before that, they hope to get David Murphy back, and when they get Murphy back, he'll probably play third. So that's the way Terry Collins has had to deal with it. Bruce drills this one into right for a base hit, and the Reds have their first hit and the leadoff hitter on in the second.
Well, no shifty defense for the Mets here. They play him pretty much straight up, and he finds a hole on the right side with the first pitch.
Sweet swing for Bruce. He continues his hot hitting as we head towards the All-Star break. So Jay is on, no one out. And here's Brian Pena, 295, no homers, 11 knocked in. Short lead for Bruce down at first. Jay's 7-game win streak was snapped last night. He pinch hit and struck out. They had hoped to give him the day off, but the lengthy 13-inning encounter, he wound up pinch hitting. Pena gave you another night, Chris. Guy's something else, isn't he?
He really is, and you figure that he would get the night off tonight, but he's always caught Johnny Cueto this year, and he's certainly not going to miss that opportunity to catch Cueto. Now, he had as much energy at the end of the game, Brian Pena did, as he did at the very beginning of the game. The guy is just tireless.
And he loops this one in the left. That drops for a base hit. Going to second will be Bruce. So back-to-back base hits. 2 on, nobody out, and here comes Suarez. Our Kia driver's seat numbers for Eugenio Suarez, brought to you by Kia. 6-game hitting streak, pretty good numbers, 4 straight multi-hit games. He's shown that he's not overmatched at this level with the bat.
Not one bit. I mean, he did play half a season last year for the Tigers, and he had some good offense, and that's the one thing the Reds really liked about him. And we talked about, what do you expect to see from Suarez when we talked to Reds officials in spring training? It was about him being a really good offensive player, and at age 23 is only going to get better.
2 on, nobody out. Do you bunt him here? Unlikely for Brian Price. They'll do it later in the game. This early as Suarez steps out, looks at Jim Riggleman, who flashes signs at third, down at first. Billy Hatcher, as usual, manning the first base coach's box.
Well, the Mets certainly don't think there's a bunt in order.
And
there wouldn't be now with 1 strike anyway.
Down and in for a ball. Your home plate umpire is Dana DeMuth. Tom Wooding is your first base umpire. Ed Hickok's the veteran at second, and Mike Estabrook is over at third. Very pleasant night here in New York at Citi Field. Syndergaard to the stretch. Takes a little off, locks up Suarez for strike 1 and 2.
That's an 82-mile-an-hour curveball from Syndergaard. He's had only 8 starts in the major leagues. Syndergaard has. The first 4 went very well. He had an earned run average of 1.8 through the first 4. The last 4 have kind of fallen apart on him a little bit.
There's some giddy up on that one, up and in.
Yeah, and what you see is what you get. I don't think that there's a lot of deception with his delivery. It looks like he's got a very clean, simple delivery. Nice, fairly efficient arm swing. But it looks like he shows you the ball also. And I'm watching a lot of tape of him, and it shows me that even though he's throwing 97, there are hitters that are having good swings on him because they see the ball a little bit.
Skip down to short. Backhand. The throw to second is in time. And there'll be runners at first and third. Nice stretch by Herrera to get the out. Good hustle by Pena, who had a big lead from first, trying to beat the throw, just nipped by half a step.
Well, he had nowhere else to go. Tejada was away from third base, so he couldn't get the leadoff man. And that's just a nice play there by Flores to be able to get something out of what looked like could have been an infield hit.
Herrera got the worst of that as Pena slid into that back leg and kicked it off the bag. So 1 away now. Double play to end the inning. Still a possibility for the Mets as Dominguez steps in. Bruce down at third, first and third. This one popped back and out of play by Chris. Dominguez at 263, a homer and 2 knocked in.
He's in a tough spot. He's a young guy. He hasn't really had a lot of major league time. He's coming off the bench playing sporadically. And it's hard to get into any kind of a groove and any kind of a feel for things. You just have to go up there and see if you can get a good pitch and let it rip.
Broken bat, Blute back over the mound, charging. They'll get the out at first, but the Reds will get a run out of it. Boy, he sawed him off, but good hustle by Bruce as it cleared the mound. As soon as it did, Bruce took off for the plate, and the Reds tie this game at 1.
I really wasn't sure what to watch. For a second there, I watched the bat go flying into the stands because that was a dangerous little piece of wood flying uncontrolled, spinning into the stands, crowded part of the stands. And then the play come across by the charging shortstop makes a nice play. Dominguez nearly beats that out.
Chris, you've been there with a piece of a bat flying at you on the mound. Very difficult to differentiate what's the ball, what's the bat. Had he been able to right himself, they would have caught the runner. Bruce probably never would have had a chance to score. As it is, the Reds get a run out of it. Runner at second, 2 away. And here's Cueto. Bounce to the right side. Herrera has it. And that'll do it. But the Reds get back-to-back hits from Bruce and Pena. Infield out ties this one at 1. Syndergaard will be up fourth when we return.
I'm Jim Day. When you come to the Big Apple, of course, this is the home of Major League Baseball. They have their offices here. They also have the command center where all the replays are looked at, viewed, and judged. And myself and Chris Welsh today got an invitation to go into that command center, and it was like walking into a NASA control room. It was very, very impressive. In fact, we got firsthand looks at how the process happens. There you see myself and Chris sitting there at an actual station where a technician and an umpire, real umpire, will sit and go through replays. And Chris can talk about this in much more length. But both of us came away with a newfound respect on the process. And certain plays, I know when you're sitting at home and you're saying, why is this taking so long? Trust me when I tell you, new respect for why it takes so long.
And we'll continue to talk about that all night long, JD, as Wilmer Flores steps in facing Johnny Cueto. Flores, Lagares, Plawecki due up. Flores, the shortstop tonight at 243, 10 homers, 33 knocked in. He's got some power, has had as many as 15 homers in the minor leagues. Chris, what was it like to sit in that chair?
Well, you know, George, when they play it, they're going to play a couple of sample clips, and obviously it's going to be very close play. And it's a clip that has been personally selected as kind of a sample. And the difficulty thing is that you've always got the clock ticking. When we're sitting here at the ballpark, we're waiting for a review to go through and the judgment finally to be levied. It seems like it takes forever, but when you're sitting in that chair and you're looking at a replay and then you're asking the technician, roll it back a few frames. What other angles do you have? He gives you another angle. What other angles? He gives you a third angle. And all three of the angles say something different. And then the head technician looks up at me and says, well, we are 2 minutes in right now. And it seemed like it was 20 seconds. So when you finally made the decision, and he looks at me and says, well, would you bet your house on that decision? And I'm saying, well, let me go back and take that look at that third angle again. So it's very difficult. I mean, the whole goal of Major League Baseball is to get these plays right, and for the most part, they do get them right. And I thought the whole process was fascinating. Really smart people working there. And the other thing I found out, George, that Jim Day and I are about 35 years too old. We're too old by 35 years to work there because they have got some very young, very smart kids working in there that I call them kids. They're in their 20s, but man, oh man, they have it going on over there.
Lagares flies out 2 away, and here's the catcher, Kevin Plawecki. They've done a remarkable job in building that facility, putting it together, and it gets better week by week, and the people who work on it get better at it too. But I know in talking with Randy Marsh, the opening series of the season, and we talked about, you know, how do you translate what goes on there to broadcasters all over the country, and we both believe that the key is when broadcasters come through New York, just like when players come through, probably be a good idea for them to take a visit there to see exactly how the whole thing works. You get a better idea of how it does work and what goes on when we sit here for those 2.5 minute junctures.
It's not frivolous and it's not trivial. It is very serious, and you've got two, Major League umpire crews sitting in that room, each one watching a game along with a technician next to him. They've got 12 different angles, 12 different cameras, 6 from home, 6 from visiting that they can get. And, they're looking pretty much at what we show on the air, but they're looking at it in much better detail. And they really normally get the job done right. And the umpires want to get it done right. I don't think that they play favorites by saying, oh, that's my buddy out there who made that call. I don't want to overturn him because, he may overturn me later in the summer. I think they just want to get the call right.
Plawecki fouls it off, 2 balls and 2 strikes. And to answer your question, how often you and I sit here and you say, boy, I hope they have a better screen than I have up here in the booth. They sure do, don't they?
Yes, they do. Just slightly.
Those are all like 50 inches.
And crystal clear.
Just like what you have at home.
That I never get to watch. I'm always watching it through these little monitors that we travel with. That
hey, it was good 20 years ago. Why isn't it good now?
Yeah, I mean, if you spend 20 years in the back of a tractor trailer, you're going to look like this monitor too.
2-2. Swing and a miss. Good hitting for Cueto. Ground out, fly ball out, strike out. The Reds go back to work. Billy to the bat rack. Highest win percentage by park in the last 5 years for the Reds. Citi Field, 12-5 overall with a winning percentage of over 70%. Remember that stretch at Minute Maid Park where it was guaranteed, Chris, every year the Reds would have 14, 15 wins against the Astros, and there was that stretch at the Marlins Park as well. But Citi Field with Cueto winning a couple of times. Remember, Bronson Arroyo always pitched well here. Pretty good place for the Reds over a stretch.
I guess the room service here in New York must be pretty good, huh?
Expensive. Here's Billy. Hamilton at 225, 3 homers, 19 knocked in. Caught stealing last night when he slipped going between first and second. And Chris, you were down there. Was it the rain or what? But it looked like that track between first and second was awful loose.
Yeah, it seemed like every time a fast runner wanted to dig his cleats in, the Pirates had the same situation, that it would just, the dirt would just give out.
Well, Citi Field, Chris, when you played, this was one of the worst places to come in New York City, the old Shea Stadium. The field was horrible. The infield was horrendous, largely due to the fact back in those days the Jets played in the same ballpark, and the field never really recovered early, and then late when they started playing football it just got worse. But this field is in pretty good shape. Billy tries to check his swing.
I always thought that the broadcast booth at Shea Stadium was one of the maybe the most dangerous places in America to work, because when it rained they had a lot of wires that were just simply cut off.
You're right.
They had no tape on them, no end caps. You know, sometimes the insulation was just shaved off and exposed, and you weren't sure which were live and which were not live.
We found out by touching them.
It would rain, and then rain would start dripping into the booth, and your table was metal.
You loved it there. 2 balls, 1 strike. Billy loops it to left. Kadire back pedals. He's got it. Hamilton retired. 1 away.
Got to get Billy out of the air. I mean, I'm not sure what he needs to do mechanically. I think it's more his approach. And if it's nothing even more complicated than don't swing at a pitch until you get 2 strikes if it's above your waist. I mean, he needs to be on the ground. And that's the first step in him getting on base more, because they're going to come right after you. I mean, they're not going to walk him. He's got to figure out a way to get on base.
Remember, we were in Philadelphia and I sat with Larry Boa, who was, you know, you would classify him as a punch and Judy hitter. And number one, that was when the Reds dropped him down to 8th or 9th in the lineup, Billy down. And also the Phillies just kept pounding him up. And he said, if he keeps swinging, we'll keep pounding him up. Here's Brandon, struck out first time up. Line drive center field. That's a base hit, and make it 30 games and counting for Brandon Phillips. 30 straight games. He's hit in every game he's played in New York, both at Shea Stadium and Citi Field, against the Mets in his career. That's within 2 of the all-time record set by Luis Castillo in the early 2000s. He's been something else, Chris.
He has been something else. I mean, on both sides of the field, you know, he's not playing at 100%. I mean, the guy has shown me, every year he seems to show you a little bit more, but this year he is just, he's batted in every different part of the batting order that you expect him to see him in. He's having an amazing year. He really is. I think coming to spring training a little bit lighter. He lost about 15 pounds or so over the winter, did it on purpose, has really helped his game.
And one of the reasons why the Reds have won 6 of their last 8 and 11 of their last 17. A little bit of a mini run. They haven't picked up ground because the Cardinals keep winning, but they're coming closer to 500, 34 and 37, and that's the first stop that you want to make on your way back.
Well, that team batting average has a lot to do with it, George, because they're finally getting some runs scored. They're batting in the last 8 games .302 as a team. So anytime your team is batting up close to 300, I mean, you're just walloping the ball. It's only over the course of 8 games, but they've won 6 of those.
Joey takes it at the stop of the strike zone for a strike, and it's 0-2. Speaking of streaking, Joey has an active season high streak of 32 consecutive games on base, either by a walk or a hit batsman. Short lead for Phillips, not going. That's wide. This is one of those gut check nights, Chris, you played, and when you have a night like last night, second time in a week really, the Reds went 13 innings, a rain delay, and then had to move on. How do you respond the next night? Fastball misses in.
You know, George, it may sound funny, but I've always remembered that it wasn't the night after a bad travel day that you really showed the fatigue. It's the day after that. So it's tomorrow afternoon's game at 4 o'clock, which is where a lot of these guys are going to lose the adrenaline of playing in this, the first game at City this year. And you get yourself up for this game. Tomorrow is going to be a little more difficult.
Down and in, and Syndergaard's shoulders slumped, and he peered in at Dana DeMuth. It's 3-2.
When you think you make a perfect pitch on Joey Votto and it gets called against you, you're going to slump. Votto gets the benefit of a pitch that looks like it's, well, at least on that box tracks, right on the edge of the strike zone.
3-2. Phillips going. Swing and a miss, and no throw. Stolen base for Phillips.
Well, that's a gutsy pitch right there for a 22-year-old. I mean, he possesses a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, but on a 3-2 pitch, he throws a changeup. And he gets that kind of swing out of Votto. And look at the reaction that Votto had. He was talking to himself in the middle of the swing saying, I can't believe he threw that pitch.
Oh, my God. Watch. Nasty pitch from the.
That's like unfair.
Here's Frazier. Popped up to end the first, 0 for 1.
You know, when Syndergaard was coming up in the organization with the Toronto Blue Jays, before he was traded over here, he also came up with a couple of other pitchers, Alex Sanchez being one, a terrific pitcher, and Justin Nicolino. Justin Nicolino, if that name sounds familiar to you Reds fans, he was the young man who made his major league debut for the Marlins in Cincinnati just this last week, and he shut the Reds down for his first major league win. So I'm not sure if Toronto's out looking for pitching or not, but they had some pretty good arms up there at one point. They've had some major trades to completely revamp that roster, going with more veteran players, but in the process they had to rid themselves with some arms.
Phillips is going, and he will steal that one easily. If Syndergaard had stopped, they had his pocket pick. He took one step, stopped, then they had him almost midpoint between second and third, but he never stopped.
Well, somebody's got to yell to him.
Up back to the mound. There is Syndergaard. He'll toss out Frazier, and the Reds will strand a runner. Base hit, nothing to show for it. Tied at 1 as we go to the bottom of 3. Reds, who have been one of baseball's best defensive teams. Of late, they've faltered somewhat, but they're still fourth in the National League with 35 errors. That's 12 less than the Mets. Dominguez in left, Hamilton and Bruce round out the outfield. Frazier, Suarez, Phillips, Votto across the infield, and Brian Pena behind the plate catching Cueto. That's your 4 defensive alignment. Well, Johnny, with 2 strikeouts through the first 2 innings, one of Duda, one of Plawecki, hits the number 8 hitter, Noah Syndergaard, and then Herrera, the second baseman, will bat 9th. Now, Syndergaard swings a pretty good bat, too. The Reds, of course, have Michael Lorenzen, an outstanding pitcher and position player in his younger days. Syndergaard's out of that same mold. In fact, he's got a home run already this year, and he's hit 300.
Yeah, the difference, I think, for Syndergaard, I mean, I'm not trying to compare them as hitters, but Syndergaard is a left-handed hitter and a right-handed thrower. I imagine he's wearing some kind of a little arm pad on the back of that right arm around the elbow. I would think, or hope so anyway. That's where he's going to make his money. I think I see a little pad there.
Put Doc Gooden on that list, right? I mean, Doc was a right-handed thrower and a left-handed hitter through high school. When he got up here, they made him move around. You don't want to risk that on.
Good point.
Hard to believe. 1984 seemed like just yesterday in some respects. Swing and a miss. Syndergaard retired. The good news for Syndergaard, he's got a homer. And in talking with him, the bad news is he said, I should have waited later in the year because after I hit the homer, all I've been seeing is change-ups and breaking balls. 3 strikeouts for Johnny, and here's Herrera, the second baseman. The Mets were the surprise team of the National League. You'd probably have to say Minnesota was the surprise team of the American League in the early going. The Mets were 13-3 through the first 3 weeks of the season. And since the last week of April, they've been 4-24. So Terry Collins, with all the injuries that have hit, has just tried to keep the train on the track. They went from a game and a half ahead to 3.5 back during that 7-game losing streak that ended with the win at Milwaukee yesterday.
Well, yeah, and it's been very disappointing on the road for Terry Collins' team this year. 11-26 when they get away from Citi Field. They average about 2.8 runs a game. So the Reds are thinking, boy, you're catching them at the right time, right? Well, maybe not, because there's only one team in baseball that has won more games at home than the Mets have. They've won 26. They've only lost 11 here in New York, and they've averaged over 4.3 runs a game.
Almost a reverse of what's been the case the last few years when they've struggled at home. There's Kadire, provided great leadership to this club.
Of course, they've also got 10 guys on the disabled list. Now, Reds fans don't want to hear it because they've got a full disabled list themselves.
You know, Chris, you can say what you want, and we've been around with that guy, Terry Collins, for a long time. He's managed in Houston, and then Anaheim, and now with the Mets for 5 years. All told, 11 years as a major league manager. At one point, they said, well, this guy's a minor league guy. He's never going to be a manager. Boy, he's done a whale of a job here.
I think he's changed.
Yep.
I mean, early on, you and I both, knew him, and he seemed to be very quick-tempered, on edge all the time, a little bit nervous. I think he's really settled down and has become a terrific manager, really good people person.
Long-time minor league operative, and he's learned how to manage in the majors.
But he also allows his leaders on his ball club to run the team. And missing David Wright right now is a big void. You miss your starting catcher, the Reds know that. With Devin Mesoraco on the disabled list. By the way, Devin is going to have surgery here in New York on Monday.
Brian Kelly will perform that surgery with Dr. Timothy Kremchek assisting here in New York. And the hope is that he'll be ready to go for spring training next year.
Fly him in from South Bend?
Yeah. The other Brian Kelly.
Oh, okay. He made me a little nervous there.
He doesn't play a doctor on TV either. Here's Granderson, who homered, his 4th leadoff homer of the year, 32nd of his career in the first. But how about Cueto? Zip, zip, zip. Strikeouts numbers 3, 4, and 5 on the night. We're tied at 1. Jay Bruce goes to the bat rack when we return. $12. Plus, stick around after the game for a Fireworks Friday show featuring a live concert by the Cincinnati Pops Orchestra. This should be a great night. Presented by Coca-Cola. For tickets, call 513-381-REDS. Visit select Kroger location or reds.com/tickets. So get the All-Star feeling early. Celebrate the 4th of July on Friday, July the 3rd with the Cincinnati Pops. That's going to be special. Here's Jay Bruce, single to right in the second. Bruce and Pena each single to start the inning. And finally a ground out by Dominguez chased home the Reds' tying run. We're tied at 1 as we go to the 4th. Very pleasant night tonight. Clouds moving in, rain coming in tomorrow, and the hope is we can get tomorrow's game in. It's a 4 o'clock start, Reds live at 3:30 tomorrow, and then a 1 o'clock start on Sunday. Already they're talking, if the rain moves in earlier than expected, of a doubleheader on Sunday. Hopefully we don't end up with that. Missing down and away. Bruce got in on him a little bit. Granderson will track it down at the edge of the warning track. And there's one away. And just a reminder, as you enjoy a cold one, to look forward to Miller Time later in tonight's game, brought to you by Miller Lite. Miller Time today. It'll be Miller Time tomorrow, hopefully, Chris. Stevie Miller Band. Concert after the game tomorrow.
Here?
Here.
No kidding.
Big time, huh?
There was a time I really liked Stevie Miller, and I probably still
do.
would.
Still got some of his songs?
I've got them memorized.
Yep. Fly Like an Eagle? That's big. You tried that.
Yeah, that's I did not know that about that, George. Thanks for telling me.
Hopefully they'll get the concert in. Hopefully we'll get the game in tomorrow. Here's Brian Pena, single to left.
Is the concert rain or shine even if the game is not played?
You got me. I mean, if it's pouring, what they're talking about, I'm sure they have a date, so I doubt if they cancel on that day, I don't think they're going to postpone it till the next day. Take the money and run. Favorite song? Stevie Miller favorite song?
I think the Fly Like an Eagle is a pretty good song. There's so many of them. He had so many good, top hits.
Pena to right. Anderson under it. 2 away.
Syndergaard seems to really have gotten into a little bit of a groove here. He had a long second inning. Gave up a base hit to Phillips in the 3rd inning, but he's just cruising right along. His nickname is Thor. He went to Legacy High School in Mansfield, Texas. That's right outside of Dallas. An only child. He was all set to go to Dallas Baptist College because it was the only school they could find that it would give him a scholarship. He talked to coaches at Oklahoma and Baylor, University of Nebraska. Nobody really wanted to give him a scholarship. Between his junior and senior year, he grew about 3 or 4 inches, and he got to be 6 feet 4 inches tall. So I'm not sure what those guys were thinking when they didn't want him. The Blue Jays drafted him in the 1st round.
Down to third, Tejada. Outstanding play by Ruben Tejada. Robbed Suarez of a base hit. Tejada's got a shortstop's arm, and he shows it here. 1, 2, 3 go the Reds in the 4th to the bottom of 4. Tejada will lead it off.
Day, as you know, if you're a Reds fan, Brandon Phillips likes to inject as much fun into the game as he can. I don't know if you caught this at the end of last night's game. He has another double play partner with Zach Cozart out for the season. But after the final out, him and Eugenio Suarez, a little rock, paper, scissors action. It's best 2 out of 3 every time they do it. It was Brandon's idea to start this. They only do it after wins. He started it 4 wins ago. Brandon has won the last 2 times, but they're even up 2 apiece in the best 2 out of 3 after each win. And I said, why are you doing this on the field? He said, it's called having fun. And why not?
JD, we've seen a lot of the plays that he's made, and some have been just spectacular, some miraculous, but last night's has to be a top 5 for him.
Well, not only, we were talking about before the game, we've seen him go behind the back with a little toss behind the back, but that one last night had some mustard on it. That was a behind the back throw, and right on the money to Eugenio Suarez. And look at it right here, and you almost see the look on Eugenio's face like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he just delivered that strike to me.
Tejada gets clipped on the shoulder, so hit by a pitch, he'll head down to first base. By the way, there's another look. Tejada digs in. This one.
That's a changeup right there. It looks like it gets him on the forearm, and that's where it really hurts because there's obviously no muscle right there, right off the bone. Bad news is you got hit on the elbow. The good news is it was a changeup and not a fastball.
Last thing the Mets need is another guy to hit the DL. They just brought Travis d'Arnaud, their catcher, back after a broken pinky finger, and down in Atlanta he stretched out to try to make a tag at home plate and hyperextended his elbow, so he's back on the disabled list. So another one goes down for the Mets this week. Tejada at times brilliant at short. There's Tommy Goodwin, the first base coach, next to him. By the way, while we've got a moment and we look at Ruben and number 11 down at first, the first time you and I have been together, they had a moment of silence before the game today for Darryl Hamilton, a former Met, former Brewer, former Major League player, and a guy that you and I were very close to over the years. And we certainly send our condolences on to his family and all those who have shared the game of baseball with him over these years at his passing this past week. Great guy, outstanding person. Darryl Hamilton was one of the best.
He certainly was, George. Always seemed like he had a smile on his face everywhere he went. And you know what? I did not realize until I went back and looked at his playing career numbers. He had a great career.
Yeah.
I thought you would have played, 6, 7, 8 years in the major league. He was a 13-year major league player and really a long-time Milwaukee Brewer. Just had a really fine career.
Speaking of good guys, been a nice visit. Johnny Franco.
Can't get any better than Johnny.
The original number 31.
I bet he could come out throwing that little circle change right now. Roll out of bed and throw that thing and have it drop 2 feet, no problem.
He could throw it once and the elbow wouldn't respond the second time. From 40
feet. That's right. He can get anybody out.
One of the best. You talk about moments, and I'll never forget being in this ballpark when the Mets acquired Mike Piazza. And Johnny Franco had number 31. Mike Piazza wore number 31 before he ever came here. Runner down at first, Cueto to the stretch, Duda at the plate. Fouled off. And there never was discussion. What does a leader mean? What does a leader in a clubhouse mean? When Mike Piazza showed up, sitting in his locker was a uniform number 31 with Piazza's name on it. John Franco gave him that number in deference to Mike Piazza in his career. That's big time. Big time.
Did Johnny Franco have to buy him a suit, though? That's the question. Isn't that the age-old tradition among baseball players?
That's a call, strike 3. Duda's retired, 1 out and 1 on.
Let's ask Johnny himself.
I didn't have to buy him a suit. In fact, he got Leroy Neiman painted a portrait of me. So
Yeah.
for me giving my number up to Mike. So
Johnny, good to see you, man. You
Yeah,
look
how you
great.
guys doing?
You
I'm
look
doing great,
great.
man. I feel
How's
good.
Rosie?
What are you doing
Everybody's
nowadays?
one of the club ambassadors for the Mets. So basically nothing. Come to the stadium a couple times, a homestand. Do some sweet visits, go on the field.
You got a couple in you?
Yeah. I pitched in a Hall of Fame Classic a couple of weeks ago, 3 up, 3 down. My arm was killing me for the next week.
Great memories, great moments for you here and with the Reds, too.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to come back tonight. There was so much history and so much great memories that I had in Cincinnati to see some of the old guys. I stopped by, I saw Marty, wanted to come up and say hello to you guys. I saw Rick Stowe earlier, and just had a great time. And I did get invited back for the All-Star festivities in Cincinnati in 2 weeks, so I'm looking forward to seeing that and going back to Cincinnati. I haven't been back there since I got released in 2005.
You don't forget those things.
Oh,
do you?
no, that's when I got released. 10 years it would be.
It happens to everybody.
Yes, it happens. It happened real fast. I was kind of glad. So as soon as I got released, I went to Italy. So I never got a chance to go to Italy, and I went to Italy. So it was nice.
Chris, remember when he came back in the clubhouse, welcome with open arms. That's a strike from Johnny Cueto to Kadire, 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Have you been successful in teaching any young pitchers that circle changeup that you threw?
Well, I would love to, but I don't get the opportunity. No. The Mets haven't given me the opportunity to do that. So I would love to do that. I've gone to spring training a couple times, but
Suarez boots it into center field. It'll be first and third. Eugenio Suarez makes his 3rd error of the last 2 ball games. And the Mets have first and third with only 1 out here in the 4th.
Looked like a ball that he got to very easily, and I don't know, maybe it just bounced right over his glove.
Chris, you talk about, he's shown that he's not overmatched offensively, but the errors that he made appear to be errors of carelessness more than anything else. That's a play that should be made.
Well, and it's a good thing the Reds have a very good infield instructor on their coaching staff. Freddie Benavides is a guy that teaches infield as well as anybody, and I'm sure that if you give Suarez enough time with Benavides, you're going to see an improvement. Not everybody comes over here at 23 years old, polished and ready, for the Hall of Fame.
And Johnny, the Mets have had the same thing with Ruben Tejada.
Yeah, Tejada, Flores too. Basically those 2 kids are playing out of position anyway. Yep. Flores is a second baseman, Tejada's a shortstop. So it's kind of a lot of pressure on him. But Flores has been really swinging the bat pretty well for the Mets this year.
A double play still in order. Cueto trying to get that from Flores, who's at the plate.
Johnny, you've got some pitchers over here with the Mets that are absolutely flamethrowers.
Yeah.
When you look at a guy like Syndergaard or Matt Harvey, and they're coming out there throwing in the high 90s, what do you think about that?
I think it's great. You guys are going to see something special on Sunday also. Steven Matz, who they're bringing up. He's supposed to be the best out of the bunch. Left-hander. Kid's built like a Greek god. He reminds me of John Matlack when John Matlack first came up. But he throws, 95, 96 with a good curveball.
First and third, Cueto to the stretch. That's a strike on the corner.
And they all know how to pitch. That's the main thing. They're coming up here. They're not just rearing back and trying to strike everybody out. They have good breaking balls, and they know how to set up hitters. And Matt Harvey's like a throwback. He's just great to watch.
I watched Harvey before he signed, and then as he developed. To me, he's the closest thing that I can think of to Tom Seaver in the history of the Mets.
Yeah, that's a pretty good comparison right there. He's a bulldog. He's the type of guy that when he starts, he wants to finish. He doesn't want to come out of the game. And we're very fortunate to have him. He's going to be here for a long time if he stays healthy.
Tom Glavine into the Hall of Fame with that little changeup. You had the changeup before him.
Yeah, I'm a little older. Well, Freddie Norman taught me that changeup.
How do you teach it?
It's just a circle change. Just go like an OK and just throw it like a fastball. Everybody always thought I turned it over. Oh, that's a good-looking guy right there. That was a fastball. See, I snuck it by everybody there. There it is right there.
Nice to have good infield behind you.
Yes, it was. But it's just a circle change, and you just throw it like a fastball and let it just sink. And I had some guys, like I said, Freddie Norman. I was fortunate enough to have Mario Soto on the team when I was there, and he had one of the best. And when I was with the Dodgers, Dave Wallace really taught me how to hold it and throw it.
Another one of the best. This one high in the air down the left field line, curving. It'll be foul and out of play.
You know, that pitch is still one of the best in baseball when you can throw it right. I mean, Johnny Cueto came up through the Reds organization, fastball, changeup pitcher. He throws more changeups now down and into right-handers than they used to throw them to both lefties and righties.
I didn't start throwing my changeup to lefties later in my career. I was sitting with John Ogle, who was one of my teammates, and he, 300 hitter. And I asked him, I said, "What's the hardest pitch for you to hit off a lefty?" And he said, "A changeup." And something just clicked in my head.
Why did you find that out 10 years earlier?
Yeah, I found that out like in the 90s over there. And then I faced Bonds in the playoffs, and I threw him a 3-2 changeup to strike him out. And I never threw him a changeup before.
3 balls, 2 strikes, runner going. This one fouled off to the right side. And it would be interesting because very often late in the game when you'd come in, opposing managers would send a left-handed batter up rather than a right-handed batter to face you.
To take away the changeup. They knew I didn't throw it that much, but I used to throw, like I try to teach some of these young lefties out here now, try to throw that 2-seamer on their right-handed box and let it cut that outside corner. And a lot of them say they can't do it. And I said, if you can't do it, you're not going to be successful in the big leagues.
Cueto appears in for a sign from Brian Pena. Will the runner be off again, 3-2? Yes, he will. There's a ground ball down to third. They'll come to the plate. They'll get the runner caught in a rundown. Unable to advance. Good job by the Reds. Neither runner was able to advance from first and second. Good job by Frazier because, Chris, he couldn't have turned the double play.
No, not going to turn the double play there. And really the Mets find themselves in just about the same shape as if he decided not to come in from third. They obviously had the contact play on, which means you're going to break as soon as the bat is put on the ball.
So first and second, and Cueto can get out of this inning. Johnny, when you think back of your Reds years, what do you remember most fondly?
There's so many great memories. I remember, Tom Browning's perfect game, Pete Rose breaking a hit record, Dave Parker just getting on guys, Bo Diaz catching. And my first year up with Dave Concepcion playing shortstop, and Cedeno, and I mean that's some good memories. Ron Oster, real gritty guy at second base, hard-nosed player
who just went into the Reds Hall of Fame this past year,
deservingly so. Buddy Bell at third, Eddie Milner, but also I remember that big fight we had against the Mets too in Cincinnati with Eric Davis and Ray Knight.
Yep.
That was a good one.
That sure was a good one.
Third base showdown.
Yeah.
Ray Knight was pretty quick on the draw on that one.
Yeah, he was.
Wasn't a boxer for nothing, was he?
I remember, I think it was John Denny who used to do all that Gus
Heffling stuff. Yeah.
And he had somebody by the collarbone with those eyes ready to pop out of his head. I thought he was going to, oh my God. And there were about 4 or 5 guys on Kevin Mitchell. I remember that.
You were a leader. What makes a leader on a ball club?
I just think you lead by example. You go out on the field, try to do your job. Watch the clubhouse, see how it goes. Any guy is struggling, you go up to him, give him a vote of confidence, pat him on the back, or if somebody's not doing it, holding their end, or they're dogging it, go give him a kick in the behind and say, "Let's go, man." You're not only you hurt yourself, but you hurt your teammates. And I think that's something that the Mets miss with David Wright not being here.
Yeah.
So, but when I was here, being a relief pitcher and named the captain of the team is very unheard of. But, I enjoyed it. I like when guys come to me if there's a problem, you go to the manager, general manager, stuff like that.
Cueto to the stretch, first and second. How's Rosie?
Rosie's fine. Kids are fine. We got 3. My daughter's 27. My son's 23. And my retirement gift was little Ella. She's 10. Yeah, when I retired, we had another one. My son plays minor league ball for the Atlanta Braves, and he had a pretty good season last year. Unfortunately, this year he tore his pectoral muscle and he's out for the season. So hopefully he'll be ready for instructional league.
You ever have a desire to get back in uniform?
Absolutely. I'm chopping at the bits. So
wait a minute, we got to get him out of New York to Cincinnati.
It could be had. It could be done.
Is there enough good Italian food in Cincinnati to get you back?
Is La Rosa Pizza still there?
Still there. Down to short. They'll get the out at second, so the error, no harm. We're still tied at 1. Johnny Franco, number 31. Thanks for joining us.
Say hello to you guys. I'll see you in Cincinnati in a couple of weeks.
Always great to see you.
All right. You got it.
Bye-bye. Your local Ford dealer. Ford, go further. By Meijer, find more for a healthier you at Meijer. And by Cincinnati Children's, ranking 3rd in the country on United States News and World Report's best children's hospital. Picture perfect night for baseball on the outskirts of New York City here in Flushing. At Citi Field, the Reds and the Mets are tied at 1 as we head to the 5th inning for the Reds. Noel Syndergaard allowed back-to-back hits by Bruce and Pena in the 2nd inning, and finally a ground out by Dominguez plated the tying run for the Reds. That came after a leadoff home run to start the game by Curtis Granderson off Johnny Cueto. There's Dominguez to lead it off in the 5th. Tries to check a swing, can't do it for strike 1. Great to see Johnny, wasn't it?
Really great. Always great to see Johnny. I figured he would be around sometime during the series because he never misses a chance to come back and see the Reds. Get kind of caught up on some of the new faces and see which old guys are still hanging around.
Got to get Harnish back here.
You'd hear him before you saw him.
You're not kidding. Walking into the park today, Ron Swoboda was walking in. How about that? Talk about the 1969 Mets. He's in town along with Johnny to do some greeting. I don't know whether the diving play or the hit by pitch might have worried the Mets or worried Ruben Tejada, but Eric Campbell is the new 3rd baseman and Tejada's out of the game. So Campbell takes over at 3rd. Dominguez retired for out number 1 here in the 5th. Been a revolving door down at 3rd for the Mets. The Mets can ill afford to lose another infielder. And we hope Tejada is not seriously injured. One away, here's Cueto. Showing bunt, it'll roll foul. No balls, 2 strikes. Hey, don't forget, tomorrow, Baseball Night at America returns as the Cubs renew their I-55 rivalry with the Redbirds. It's the Cubs and Cardinals. Coverage begins at 7 Eastern on Fox and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. NBA draft last night. NHL draft tonight. Columbus Blue Jackets will draft 8 tonight. Foul back by Cueto. Big week with a lot of selectees. The baseball draft last week, of course, as teams try to formulate their future. That's a breaking ball right in there on Cueto. He strikes out. Johnny retired. 2 away.
Strikeouts 3 and 4 for Syndergaard this inning. And now Billy Hamilton. You may have read the story about Syndergaard and David Wright in spring training when the Mets were training down in Port St. Lucie. David Wright, their team captain, gets taken out of a ball game. And he goes into the players' lounge, and there's Syndergaard in uniform eating lunch when he thought, Wright that is, that he should be on the bench with everybody else. Well, Bobby Parnell took his plate of food, promptly threw it in the trash can, and Wright gave him the dickens about being where he shouldn't be as a rookie, the honor of being in big league camp and not being on the bench with everybody else. And Terry Collins, when he was told about it, essentially applauded the actions of David Wright, saying, hey, he runs his clubhouse. You know, this is a veterans clubhouse, and a young guy like Syndergaard with a world of talent has to learn how to act like a big leaguer. And it's little lessons like that that you learn from other players rather than other coaches and other instructors and managers that really resonate and they hit home. And I think that probably went a long way to making Syndergaard a much better teammate. Probably will never happen again, and he'll be the next guy somewhere down the road to do the same thing to a young rookie coming up who's stepping out of line.
As Johnny Franco said, you lead by example, little examples, not necessarily big examples. You know, and the bottom line, Chris, every good team you've been on, players run the team. Managers and coaches don't run the team. It's up to a player. This one nubbed behind second, caught by Herrera to rob Hamilton of at least 1 and possibly a double. So Herrera keeps Hamilton off the bases. Let's go 1, 2, 3 to the bottom of 5. We're tied at 1.
times on the 2015 Esurance MLB All-Star Game ballot at Reds.com. Voting is exclusively online and available on your computer, tablet, and smartphone. Help select the starting lineups for the 2015 All-Star Game held in the Queen City. Vote Frazier, Votto, Phillips. Vote Reds at Reds.com. Last night we started soliciting on Twitter for anyone out in Reds country to send us or tweet us a picture with a Vote Frazier in their hometown, preferably at a landmark. And I'm not sure there's a bigger landmark in America than McDonald's. That is the Hebron, the McDonald's in Hebron, a Vote Frazier sign there, sent to me by Alex Huffman. If you'd like to get involved, folks, hold up a Vote Frazier sign at one of the landmarks in the Cincinnati area or your hometown, anywhere worldwide, and tweet it to Jim Day TV, and perhaps we'll use it on the air.
Where would be your landmark, JD? Any place where food is served?
Sure. I've certainly taken in all the eats in the Cincinnati area.
Swing by Plawecki, popped up in the infield. Frazier calling, and there's one away. By the way, JD, you weighing in on the Stevie Miller Band? Your favorite tune?
He's got so many hits, like you guys said. I guess Fly Like an Eagle would be one.
Yep.
Keep on Rocking Me, Baby. It's a pretty good beat to it.
Did you play an instrument at all in grammar school or high school?
You know what? I started a little bit of trumpet, but that didn't last very long. But I still dabble with some guitar, even to this day. So I haven't really taken lessons, kind of self-taught a little bit, but I dabble a little bit.
Now, if we could get you to synod.
It would cost us too much money, royalty fees, George, and probably not worth the cost.
Or not worth your time to listen.
I remember when the Beach Boys came to town and Steve Sachs was playing. Saxy was a drummer.
Well,
Sachs
I gotta tell you,
he sat in with the Beach Boys.
When we travel a lot, they put our traveling part of the media party very close together. There have been many times when I've had a hotel room right next to Jim Day, and I hear this strange singing, sounds like coming out of the bathroom. So maybe he's one of these guys that sings when he's in the shower.
Yeah, sort of like Peter Brady. A little off key.
A lot off key.
Yeah.
We love you, JD. Fouled off by the number 8 hitter, the pitcher Noah Syndergaard.
Got a good swing, doesn't he? This guy is a workout nut. I called him a weightlifting enthusiast. I mean, that may not even be strong enough. I mean, he was asked by a reporter here in town, you know, would you describe yourself as a typical 22-year-old? And he said, yeah. And the reporter said, except that you can squat 500 pounds. And he said, well, really 455 to be exact. And I mean, he has been into weightlifting really from the time that he was in high school, and credits a lot of his strength to the fact that he's able to throw so hard.
3-2. This one roped to right, but Bruce right there. Pretty good at bat.
That young man's going to have a few hits in his career.
And you can see the way Johnny dealt with him. I mean, change up, breaking ball, change up away, then 3-2. He said, let's see what you got. And he just got in on him a little. Here's Herrera hitting in the 9th spot. Struck out first time up. In the air, right center field. Who will get there? Nobody. One hop off the top of the wall. Herrera to second. They got a shot on him at third. Here's the throw. He's going to be safe, and it gets away from Cueto. But the runner will hold. Man, he can motor. Billy Hamilton went a long, long way. Missed the dive by about a foot. And here's the end result of it.
Boy, Herrera hits this ball a long, long way for a right-handed hitter. I mean, that's one of the deepest parts of the ballpark right there. Bounces up off the wall. Hamilton slams into the center field wall very hard there. It would have been bang, bang at third base, but That's another one of those situations, George, that every runner should be taught that when you hit the ball to right field or to right center field and you're trying to go from second to third, more often than not you ought to try, because you really offer a good running or a good throwing lane. There's Billy slamming into the wall, and you see where Phillips gets the ball on the relay. The runner going into third cuts off the throwing lane.
So 2 away, runner at third, back to the top of the order, Granderson. He slid on his left hand, hit his left hip, and also whiplashed his knee into the wall. So Billy Hamilton got the worst of that dive. Still trying to shake it off in center field. And they will overshift with Granderson at the plate. But trying to keep the runner as close as he can is Frazier right at the edge of the grass. Cueto to the stretch. Granderson homered his first time up, a leadoff shot in the first inning. His 4th leadoff homer of the year, 32nd of his career. That's 3rd among active players, and the 12th homer of the year. And struck out his 2nd time up. Tim Tuffle, the third base coach for the Mets, in right behind Herrera. There's the veteran outstanding second baseman for the Mets for many years, part of that '86 team. And over at first is Tommy Goodwin. Well, he could play some outfield. The homer by Granderson was his 2nd in his career against Cueto. Now 3 for 12 against him with the 2 home runs. Yes, missing, says Dana DeMuth. 3-1. Herrera with the triple on third. Granderson at the plate. And Campbell, the third baseman, in for Tejadas in the on-deck circle. Here's ball 4. That's the first walk allowed by Cueto. He did hit a batter in the 4th. That batter was Tejada. And Tejada exited the game after being hit on the elbow. And here's Campbell for his first at bat in place of Ruben Tejada. And out comes Jeff Pico, the pitching coach. Cueto sitting at 83 pitches here in inning number 5. And a reminder, you can be part of the Major League Baseball All-Star action by coming out to Great American Ballpark on All-Star Sunday, July the 12th, for a great doubleheader. Tickets available now at allstargame.com. Fun week of activities in the Queen City coming up.
Now that's a scatter report that Pico probably delivered on Campbell. 28 years old. He went to Boston College. Grew up in Connecticut. Just his 2nd year, part-time player in the major leagues. Was with the Mets last year.
We call from Las Vegas in the middle of May. Mets have had a shuttle just like the Reds have had a shuttle. Their shuttles from Vegas, long trip. Tougher to get players in. The Reds, of course, from Louisville, a lot easier than what Terry Collins has to deal with from their AAA club out west. Missing inside, a ball and a strike.
What do they say when they move a player from Vegas to New York? We're going to send you down to New York.
Hey, they're talking about moving the NHL in there, huh? Swing and a miss. And there's long been talk of Major League Baseball going there. Major League Baseball has fought it for the obvious reasons. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Too many swimming pools?
Not enough night shows. Too little gambling. Two balls, two strikes for the Mets third baseman. Johnny pitching after 8 days rest. Over 80 pitches here in the 5th inning. A 2-out triple has put a runner on third, and a walk has put a runner on first and third. There goes Granderson. Did he go? They appeal down to first. Stolen base for Granderson. Good call. So 2 runners out there now in scoring position, and it's a full count, 3-2. Missing ball 4, so back-to-back walks after the triple. And now Cueto's got to deal with Duda.
You know what we've seen with Johnny Cueto tonight, that we have not really seen a lot of him. When he gets in trouble, what we've seen in the past is Cueto rear back and elevate that fastball up around the letters, and also elevate the velocity of that fastball into the mid-90s. It seems like tonight, when he really needs to make a pitch, he's going to an off-speed pitch, more change-ups, more breaking pitches.
So they're loaded.
Duda might be ready here on the first pitch. After back-to-back walks, you want to set yourself ready for something right down Broadway if he's going to throw you a get-ahead fastball. And it's a get-ahead changeup, and he's way out in front.
Duda struck out swinging in the first, struck out looking in the fourth. For his career, he's 3 for 15 and a homer against Johnny. Duda started off like a ball of fire the first 6 weeks of the season, and then has been around 200 for the last month. Big swing. And ahead is Johnny 0-2.
Same pitch, same result.
Herrera tripled. He's at third. Granderson walked, stole second. And Campbell walked, is down at first. Slapped the other way, foul and out of play. The big guy has some power. 10 homers, 31 knocked in. He's been outstanding at home, hitting over 300, but around 200 on the road. Much like the whole story of the Mets season. It was Duda who they opted to cash their chits in with at first base a couple of years ago, when they had Duda and Ike Davis both platooning at first. They traded Davis and said, let's see what Duda can do, and he's provided them with some power. Ball and 2 strikes.
Well, his home runs of 30 home runs last year is really by far the most he's ever hit. In fact, those are twice as many home runs he hit last year as in any other season.
And now it's 2-2.
Interesting at bat here for Cueto. He went ahead of Duda by throwing 2 changeups. Strike 1, strike 2, both swing and misses. And then tried to tease him with a couple of fastballs. I would imagine here on a 2-2 pitch, you're going to get that changeup again.
In the dirt, and we'll go full 3-2. Pena's been like a big brother to Johnny Cueto the last couple of years. He's certainly helped him through some tough moments, Chris.
He certainly has. I mean, he's really taken it upon himself to be Johnny's main man. He does that with just about everybody he catches. But there's a special relationship between Pena and Johnny Cueto. it looks to me like they're disagreeing on what Pena wants him to throw versus what Cueto wants to throw.
Jeff Pico looks on, bases loaded, 3 balls, 2 strikes in a 1-1 game.
The only reason you give a sign here is to let your infielders know what to expect.
Runners going, that's a ball 4, and it'll force in a run. 3 straight walks following the triple, and the Mets lead it 2-1.
Well, this inning started. Number 7 hitter pops up to the shortstop. Number 8 hitter, the pitcher, hits a fly ball to the right fielder. So you're looking at the number 9 hitter coming up, and 2 outs. Next thing you know, you got bases loaded, a run in, and the middle of the lineup up.
And here's Kadire with the bases loaded. Reached on an error in the 4th. 0 for 2. Center field. There is Hamilton. He'll squeeze it, but the damage done. A triple and 3 walks. The last walk forces in the go-ahead run. 2-1. Mets lead it. We're ahead into the 6th.
On the line in the World Series, coverage of the 2015 All-Star Game from Cincy begins July 14th at 7 Eastern on Fox and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. Another All-Star spotlight. Guys in the booth are talking about Doc Gooden back in 1984. That All-Star Game that year was held at Candlestick Park. At 19 years old, Dwight Gooden became the youngest player to appear in an All-Star Game. In the first of his 4 All-Star appearances, he struck out the side in a game the National League won 3-1. He went on to win Rookie of the Year, lead the National League in strikeouts for the second in the Cy Young Award voting that year. And at 19 years of age, he remains the youngest player to ever appear in an All-Star Game. 1984.
Seems like yesterday in some respects, J.D., and you talk about the history of Mets pitching. Tom Seaver and Doc Gooden at the top of the list of power pitchers, and the Mets now have a nucleus of young power pitchers that are out of the same mold. Here's Brandon. He'll lead it off as we go to the 6th. Phillips struck out and singled. The single stretched his hitting streak here in New York against the Mets to 30 games. Every game he's played in New York against the Mets. Trying to get the Reds rolling here in the 6th. Votto and Frazier due to follow. That's a liner, but caught by Herrera, one away.
Boy, he has hit a boatload of those in the last couple of weeks. Right on the button and not a whole lot to show.
You know, Chris, you saw those shots at Doc Gooden, and it brings to memory 1983. I did the AAA World Series. It was in Louisville. A. Ray Smith brought the AAA World Series to Louisville. Mary Barney was still with A. Ray back then, the legendary Mary Barney. And Davey Johnson was the manager of Tidewater, Dave Rosenfield's club. And Davey had Doc Gooden. And the rumors then were that Davey might be the manager of the Mets in 1984. And when we left Louisville, we were at the airport together, and I said, what do you think? He said, I'll tell you one thing. if I go to the big club, I'm taking Gooden with me. I don't care if he's 18 years old then. And boy, did he make it important. And Tim Leary was on that club too, was a pitcher on that 83 team that was in the AAA World Series. Davey knew who to take with him, didn't he?
Well, that was an obvious choice there. His stuff translated to any league, anywhere.
Joey loops this one into center. Over is Lagares. Smooth. The Gold Glover has it 2 away.
George, want to send out sympathies and consolation and respect to the family of Sonny Kim, a police officer of 27 years who was put to rest today at Gate of Heaven Cemetery in a long procession, a big funeral, more than 7,000 people there. All of Cincinnati's finest were there, and many law enforcement officers from around the entire tri-state. We really lost a great person in Sonny Kim, and just wanted to send our sympathies and condolences to his family and all the family of the Cincinnati Police Department.
And that reverberates all the way here to New York, and New York's finest as well. Thoughts, prayers, and
well, we're around so many of the Cincinnati police officers down at Great American Ballpark, and to a man, they're just good people, hardworking, and they deserve all of our respect.
No balls, 2 strikes to Frazier, who popped up and bounced out 0 for 2. The Reds got a run off Syndergaard in the second. Bruce and Pena singled, and eventually Bruce scored on Pena scored on a fielder's choice. Bouncer through into left field, a base hit. So Frazier's 1 for 3. The Reds have the potential tying run on for Bruce. Our IGS bringing the energy numbers for the night. Frazier 46 extra base hits in his first 70 games. Where does that rank? He's with the big guys. Second most in Reds history behind JB, Johnny Bench, who had 49 in 1970. And most by a National League player since 2008. Dan Uggla and Lance Berkman back then. So here's Jay. Bruce singled and flied out 1 for 2. Frazier, of course, from nearby New Jersey, Toms River, New Jersey, has probably 40 to 45 family and friends that he knows about at the ballpark tonight. 15 immediate family members. Bruce had his 7-game hit streak snapped last night, started a new one tonight with the base hit to right. Syndergaard to the stretch. Frazier going. Lewicki's throw will be in time. It looked like he got in, but the tag right by the shoulder got there in time to nail him at second. Ed Hickox makes the call. Frazier tossed out trying to steal, and the Reds erased here in the 6th. To the bottom of 6 we go. #1 app for live baseball. At Bat is up to the moment at any moment with in-game highlights, live look-ins, replay reviews, radio broadcasts, statcasts, and a whole lot more. Get MLB.com At Bat for your smartphone or your tablet. Can't be without it if you're a fan of baseball. And you can't be without Fox Sports Ohio if you want to follow the Reds. Johnny be good. He was good for the first 4 in the 5th. A 2-out triple by Herrera, and then 3 straight walks from Cueto. Forced in the go-ahead run. 2-1 Mets lead it. To the bottom of 6 we go. Wilmer Flores, the shortstop, will lead it off. But we now get word from the Mets clubhouse is that Tejada left with a left elbow contusion. X-rays negative, though, so hopefully he won't be on the sidelines long for the Mets. Flores 0 for 2. Grounded to short. Bounced into a 5-2 fielder's choice. Game 1 of the series tomorrow. It's a 4:10 start. Reds live at 3:30. Sunday it's a 1 o'clock start. Reds live at 12:30. Hit hard down to second, but Brandon Phillips has it. 1 away. Overall in his career, Johnny's only 3-3 against the Mets with an ERA a little over 4, and here at Citi Field only 2-2. So you look at his numbers, and in most cases his earned run average is below 3 or around 3. Here against the Mets at Citi Field, it's been around 4 throughout his whole career. That's up and in. Lagares, the center fielder, fly to center and bounced into a fielder's choice. Up and in again. Pitching rotation for tomorrow. The Reds will get a look at another hard-throwing right-hander. Matt Harvey will go for his 8th win after coming off Tommy John surgery. Michael Lorenzen will go for the Reds.
There'll be a lot of hard throwing going on there tomorrow then.
Yep. Zips it in at 90 for a strike, 3-1. Big swing, full count, 3-2. Manny Parra has started to loosen in the Reds bullpen as Cueto's passed the 100 pitch mark. And you figure either way, Chris, this will probably be his last inning.
Manny's been very good since coming back up off the disabled list. Well, Cueto started off so efficient tonight in his pitches. We showed you that inning by inning pitch number chart that showed until the last couple of innings he was really efficient. He threw a lot of pitches last inning, 30 of them in fact, 25 before that, but up until then he was really perfect with just about all of his pitches. He had his changeup working especially well. His breaking ball was working well. It's a constant battle of adjustment.
Chris, you've watched Eugenio Suarez now for a couple of weeks since he came up. He had the 2 errors last night, another error tonight. Your evaluation, I mean, it looks like defensively he has the potential to be an exceptional defender. What kind of a rut has he gotten into?
Well, I think, George, what I really like about him, obviously he can swing the bat. He's got great hand-eye coordination. He's got a strong arm. He covers some ground out there. But I think that his footwork probably needs some work. And that comes with repetition. I think there are a lot of people that can be good defenders if they want to put the time in and work at it. I mean, Brandon Phillips wasn't born a great defender at second base. This guy works as hard on his defense as anybody you will ever see. I played with Ozzie Smith. He did not work Brandon Phillips. Brandon is working just as hard as Ozzie Smith did. That's why they're at the peak of their game, because they work at it. And they start with good fundamentals, and they know what they can and can't do, and they kind of expand from there. But you've got to get your fundamentals down first.
And boy, the Reds certainly have been spoiled of late with Zach Cozart at short. He has been so solid. Not just he's been solid on some of the spectacular plays, but you know, Larry Bowa said it as well as anybody when we were in Philadelphia. He said, give me Zach Cozart when it's the bottom of the ninth inning, there are 2 outs and the winning run's on third.
That's when you want the play made. But there's a guy that has his fundamentals down rock solid. And it started when he was, back as an amateur, probably back in his college days.
Votto to Cueto, and they'll get the out. So it's a 1-2-3. Johnny bounces back. Probably his last inning. Reds go to work. Bruce will lead it off. Well-pitched ball game. Curtis Granderson against Johnny Cueto, bottom of the first. Granderson's 12th homer, 4th leadoff homer, and 32nd leadoff homer of his career. 1-0 Mets had the lead. Johnny Cueto, meanwhile, pitched well through the first 5, and the Reds were able to scratch out a run of their own on a couple of hits and a fielder's choice to tie the game at 1. But then with a triple to start things off by Herrera with 2 outs in the 5th, 3 straight walks. The last forcing in the go-ahead run to Lucas Duda. 2-1, the Mets have the lead. 2 runs, 2 hits, no errors for the Mets. A run, 4 hits, and an error for the Reds. And that's where we stand. Noah Syndergaard will go to work as we go to the 7th inning as you take a peek at your Honda game summary. Syndergaard, of course, a brilliant draft pick of the Toronto Blue Jays. He was a supplemental draft pick, and Chris, we've talked about it, and we want to say congratulations to a lot of folks this week, and one of them is Andrew Benintendi, who is a Cincinnati native, went to Madeira High School, went to Arkansas, won the Golden Spikes Award. What a great year for Cincinnati products this year, and from Andrew's standpoint, what a great family moment, as any Golden Spikes moment is. And in Los Angeles this week, there's his dad, Chris, on the left, his mom Jill, Olivia is on the far right, his older sister, and his younger sister Lily. His older sister goes to Ohio University, and on the day he won the Golden Spikes, she also was accepted to the special education program at Ohio University, a very prestigious. So it's a great week for the Benintendi family, and there's a swing and a miss by Bruce. He's retired. The first out here in the 7th inning. And You know, Chris, he was one of those Midland players.
Yeah.
Talking to Gene Bennett this past week, I said, "Do you remember him?" Gene Bennett said, "Remember him? Sure, he's a great outfielder." And he did meet him, had a chance to get together with him. And talking to Andrew said one of the greatest experience he had was going down to Gene Bennett's tournament down in Portsmouth, Ohio, and being a part of that. Midland, what a great program, and they've got a great graduate of it to win the Golden Spikes this year.
You know, George, correct me if I'm wrong, but oftentimes that Golden Spike winner goes on and has a very fine major league career. There are some who's on the list of recipients of that award.
A lot of good ones, and as good as he is as a player, even more impressive as a young man. Great family. Our congratulations to the Benintendi family, and I mean everybody. We were blessed at USA Baseball to have 4 finalists, and of the 230 some odd votes cast, the final tally was within a handful of votes. All 4 of them came close to each other. So some great players. Alex Bregman, of course, Benintendi signed with the Orioles and with the Red Sox rather, and he's showing up this week to play for Joe Oliver in Lowell, Massachusetts. So former Red Joe Oliver will be his first manager. He's in pretty good hands.
He'll never have had a manager like Joe Oliver before.
That's right. Here's Pena with one away. Loop to the left side. Alex Bregman, who was also in Los Angeles for the Golden Spikes banquet, signed yesterday with the Houston Astros, the great shortstop out of LSU. The numbers for Syndergaard pretty pitch efficient, huh? At 72 into the 7th inning. The Reds haven't made him work. One ball, 2 strikes. He holds 2-2. Over the mound, charging Flores, and they'll get him by a step. A wise decision. I think Herrera could have had it, but he opts to give it to the strong arm Flores, who makes the play.
You know, I just happened to be watching some video of the Mets, George, and a play exactly like this occurred, and the second baseman cut in front of the shortstop, but didn't take the ball. And you allow the guy whose momentum is going towards first base to make the play. A lot easier for him from the shortstop spot as Flores, and he makes a nice play and gets Brian Pena by a hair.
97 on the fastball, up and in for a ball.
You know, he throws a lot. He may throw a notch harder than Michael Lorenzen, Syndergaard, but I mean, very similar deliveries in as much as they're nice and clean. There's not a lot of movement, unnecessary movement. They're rather straightforward in as much as they say, here it is, and they both have 3 pitches that they throw for strikes. And very much the same kind of repertoire between all of them.
That's gas.
97, though, when you get above the 95 notch, you're beginning to get into the stratosphere. If you can go up the ladder, there just simply aren't all that many hitters that are going to get you. You throw it, you know, thigh high over the middle, they are going to get you.
Skied into left field. Kadire under it. He'll squeeze it, and the Reds go quietly in the 7th. 1-2-3. To the bottom of 7 we go. Mets have a 2-1 lead. Syndergaard due to lead it off. tours for as low as $12. Plus, stick around after the game for a special 4th of July fireworks show brought to you by the Missouri Division of Tourism. Call 513-381-REDS. Visit select Kroger locations or reds.com/tickets.
Manny Parr is a new pitcher the Reds are going to run out there. Johnny Cueto, 6 innings of 2-run, 2-hit baseball. He did walk 3. One of the runs that he gave up was a bases-loaded walk. You know, and even though that is an excellent line, I know it's even better than a quality start, but somehow Johnny Cueto has raised the bar of expectations so high. At 6 innings and 2 runs, you're almost left a little bit empty. But it's only a 2-1 ball game. Parr needs to keep him right there. This is game number 18 for Manny.
Chris, you and I talk about it often at the old Riverfront Stadium, the old graphic that Brian Hunterman was in the room at that time. He'd flash it up. Walks will haunt. 3 straight walks certainly haunted Johnny Cueto after the triple, and that produced the go-ahead run.
Well, they never used to put it up for Reds players.
No.
Thank goodness. I'd have been looking at that thing all the time.
I think that was because your dad called. Here's Syndergaard.
A pet peeve, no doubt about that.
Struck out and lined out 0 for 2. Leading it off in the 8th spot here in the 7th inning.
Manny's had a really good run since coming back off the DL. He had only had one little blip in all of his game logs, and that was against Miami when the 5-0 loss he had. He pitched a third of it and gave up a couple of runs. But other than that, really good baseball.
And that's a strikeout for out number 1 as Manny makes his 300th career appearance. This returning from the disabled list, and that's a pretty good career, Chris. He's become more mature as a pitcher, knowing what his strengths are, and in terms of his physical abilities, he's just found a way to harness those abilities, and he's pitching as well as he's ever pitched in his career right now.
He really began to turn it on after he became a Red, and I think Brian Price had a lot to do with that. I mean, he was a starter in his career, first coming up with the Milwaukee Brewers. He's now 32 years old, so he's been around a while. He always had earned run averages, mid-4s, 5, even in the mid-6s one year with Milwaukee. So the last year with Milwaukee, they made him solely a reliever. But he still had a very high earned run average, walked a lot of batters. But he came over here to the Reds and he dropped his walk rate down. I mean, it just fell right off the table. And that's why he got so much better, because he finally had confidence in his stuff, which is very good. And he could throw strikes with it.
Confidence so important, huh? Looped into right. Bruce is there. Jay will squeeze it 2 away. Herrera's retired. Herrera had the biggest hit of the night. Cueto only gave up 2 base hits. The homer by Granderson in the first, and then the triple with 2 outs by Herrera in the 5th. And after the 3 walks, he was chased home. And here's Granderson. After the home run, struck out and walked. Curtis coming over as a free agent. Bounced in and out and up and down the lineup, and he's found a home here in the leadoff spot. And while the Mets have struggled of late, and Granderson has hit pretty well with power and with regularity, I mean, everybody's asked, there's a fly ball to left. It'll stay in the park. Everybody's asked Terry Collins, why not move him into a power spot? He said he's just doing fine in a leadoff spot. We'll leave him there. Reds running out of outs. Dominguez leads it off. They trail 2-1. smiling side of the scoreboard if the Reds can rally here. 2 runs, only 2 hits for the Mets. The homer by Granderson in the first and the triple by Herrera that started the rally that gave them the lead. The Reds have 4 hits and a run.
Well, you figured in a game started by these 2 pitchers, and that if Syndergaard was on his game, he certainly has the capability of shutting anybody down with his arm. That hits will be at a premium tonight, and they are. That's a pretty good line, whether you're 22 or 32. This young man has got a lot of good baseball ahead of him.
Pretty impressive big right-hander. Here's Dominguez, who will lead it off. Chris grounded out in the second. That plated the Reds' run. It came after Bruce led off the inning with a base hit to right. Pena looped a base hit into left. Suarez bounced into a fielder's choice, and then with a runner on third, Dominguez grounded to short to get the runner home. A lone run that the Reds have. That's a shot back through the middle, a base hit for Dominguez. He hit that right on the button. JD, what do you got?
Last night, after Skip Schumacher was taken out of the game in Pittsburgh, he came over and asked me to take a picture of this family behind the dugout that was holding a sign saying that we're from Ladera Ranch, California. Skip Schumacher's hometown. I figured, I took the picture. I'm like, he must know these people. I didn't find out till today that he had no idea who these people were. In fact, he made me take a picture of the other side where it says, "Our sister has a crush on Brody. Brody is his son." And the 2 sons and the dad were on a baseball trip from California clear out east, and the daughter goes to school with Skip's son. So took the picture, and actually Skip brought over a bat which was signed. I gave to them. I didn't find out till today that he had no idea who they were. And they've actually connected on social media. They're going to be here at the game tomorrow, and he's going to get them on-field passes if they have batting practice. So it's just amazing how baseball brings people together.
Great story.
Yep. And just like Johnny Franco was talking about, there's some guys that are leaders in the clubhouse doing simple things. Schumacher's one of those. Trying to get the Reds rolling right here as he pinch hits in the pitcher's spot. With Billy Hamilton due up next, Lewicki will go out and talk to his big right-hander. Pinch hitting this year, Schumacher has been the most often used and the most successful Reds pinch hitter, Chris.
Well, he hits a fastball, and that's a formula for anybody who's a pinch hitter to be able to come right off that on-deck circle, ready to hit the first something straight that you see. He struggled a little bit in his last start. I think it was A.J. Burnett who was facing him. He kept throwing those breaking balls down and in, and he kept swinging over the top of them.
Towards the hole, gobbled up, but bobbled. And they got him by half a step. Schumacher thought he would beat it out, but they got him by just about a half a step. And Herrera almost threw it away from Duda. So the Reds will get the tying run into scoring position. And this has been a similar refrain for the Mets. Plays that they have not made in the infield have come back to haunt them in recent days.
Oh, this is one of those deceptive plays here because it goes in the scorebook as a 4-3 putout from second base to first, and he does get him by a half a step. But in reality, if you're Terry Collins or if you're Noah Syndergaard, you're thinking, could there be an easier double play ball than that?
Boy, I'm not sure. That's awful close.
We'll get you in the review room. Put the clock on you.
That was Terry Collins looking across at the Reds dugout to see if they were going to challenge. The Reds do not. So here's Billy with Dominguez, pretty good speed, sitting out at second.
You know what they'll do over at the replay room, the head office there at MLB, is that they will take a play like that was not questioned or asked for a challenge by the umpire, but they'll take a good look at it just to see whether the umpire got it right or not.
Hamilton tonight, fly to left and line to second. A diving stop by Herrera prevented the ball from going into center. Might have even been a double for Hamilton if it got by him. Dominguez, big lead off second, trying to get as much as he can. This one nubbed to the right side. Runner to third with 2 away. So Dominguez, the tying run, sits at third, and here's Brandon.
Yeah, for Syndergaard, that missed double play means that now he will have to face Brandon Phillips, one of the hottest hitters in the lineup. And you turn the lineup over.
I mean, whether it's been Syndergaard or Jacob deGrom, who's been miraculous of late, or Harvey, each of them has been burned in recent games by plays that were not made by infielders for the Mets.
I find it interesting that they're about to go to a 6-man rotation. And I read comments about what Noah Syndergaard said about that. He said he welcomes it. It gives him an extra day off. Of course, he's a power pitcher, and an extra day off at this age, will really make him feel like Thor when he goes to the mound. They're going to bring up a young man on Sunday named Steven Matz, and the reports on him are just sensational.
Almost hit Brandon. The Reds have their best hitter with runners in scoring position at the plate right here. He's been in the upper 200s all year long. Another look. Dominguez sits at third. He led off with a base hit. 2 ground balls to second have gotten him to third. Phillips struck out first time up, singled to center, and then stole 2 bases in the third, and he lined to second in the 6th. If he joined us late, the single to center stretched his consecutive game hitting streak against the Mets to 30 straight. He's hit in every game here in New York since he's been coming to New York, both at Shea Stadium and Citi Field. He'd love one right here to tie this one up. Popped up. Herrera's got it, and the Reds strand the tying run here in the 8th. They got one more crack at it to the bottom of 8. 2-1 Mets.
Produced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Cincinnati Reds.
Hey, get free autographs from your favorite MLB and Reds legends and Hall of Famers, including Barry Larkin, Tony Perez, Eric Davis, Chris Welsh, and many more at T-Mobile's All-Star Fan Fest with the price of admission. Tickets available now at allstargame.com. Great to have you with us, George Grant, Chris Welsh, Jim Day, as we bring you Reds baseball, game 1 of the 3-game set against the New York Mets. For the Reds, Johnny Cueto started, went 6 innings, allowed only 2 hits, 2 runs, struck out 6, walked 3. If you joined us late, he walked 3. All of them came after a triple and forced in the go-ahead run. 112 pitches for Johnny. He's on the short end. Here's Nate Adcock, Chris.
Nate Adcock, 27. You know, he's from Radcliffe, Kentucky. Talked about that a lot. He was on his third major league team. Spent a couple of seasons with Kansas City. Last year with the Texas Rangers. This game number 6 for Adcock. Well, we were wondering between innings, George, whether Noah Syndergaard would be allowed by Terry Collins to go out and try to throw up there a complete game. And evidently the answer is no. He has shown all the indications in the dugout. He's not in the dugout. In fact, he's up the runway somewhere. So the guess is that he's out of the game, and they'll probably go to their closer, Familia, Jurice Familia, to come in and try to get save number 21 on the year.
1 ball, 2 strikes to Eric Campbell, who came in for Ruben Tejada. Tejada hit by a pitch from Cueto, left the game with an elbow injury. X-rays negative. 2 balls, 2 strikes from Adcock. Great to have you with us down in the truck as usual. Josh Hall, our producer. Roy Alfers, our director. Matt Sigapus dialing up some highlights for us as usual. And Jim Miller giving us some graphic pictures of tonight's ball game. Great to be here in New York with our crew, guys that have always been so great. Willis bobbled by Frazier, long throw, got him. Don't give up on it. Frazier didn't, and he gets the out.
Playing third base has been described to me as similar to a fumble in football. I mean, all of a sudden it's on you. And he just sticks his glove out there backhanded. He hits off the heel of his glove, but he stays with it, and it shows a strong arm. Boy, is this defense just really crisp.
Crisp, but Chris, the other thing we've seen is Joey Votto's been at times spectacular in his scoops down at first, saving some of those throws, too.
He's done a good job. I'll tell you, that last play by Frazier reminded me, for some reason, I look at him and I saw a lot of Scott Rowland.
Scott Rowland, you're right. You're right. Good base, wide stance, don't give up on it, and come up throwing. He learned a lot from Scott Rowland as a third baseman and as a team leader, and you say the same thing for Joey Votto. Here's Duda. They will overshift against him with Frazier at the shortstop spot and 3 infielders to the second base side of the bag. Another look, Chris.
A little different angle that time, and you know, he got his head down there close. When he went to do the backhand, he wasn't standing straight up to do it. He got down there as low as he could, which helped him because when he had to go after that ball on the ground, his upper body was already low and close to the ground.
Duda has dumped balls down the third base line this year when they've overshifted on him. And this, a dramatic overshift, as now Frazier goes close to the second base bag. Duda tonight struck out swinging, struck out looking, and walked to force in the go-ahead run in the 5th. 2-1. Right into the shift, gobbled up by Phillips. And don't forget, get ready for Reds action 30 minutes before every game with Reds Live on Fox Sports Ohio with all the info you need for every day's game. Reds Live presented by Ray St. Clair Roofing. And, of course, tomorrow we saw one hard-throwing young right-hander today for the Mets in Noah Syndergaard. Tomorrow another one. It's Harvey against Lorenzen, Chris.
I'll tell you, I would guess that Michael Lorenzen cannot even wait to take on Harvey tomorrow. I mean, not from an ego standpoint. He's not a bragging kind of guy or overly cocky. But I think that with all the hype that has come along with Matt Harvey, you get a young guy like Lorenzen where there's been a certain amount of hype around him, but nowhere near the national type of attention that Harvey's gotten. Lorenzen's going to say, you know what? I'm going to leave town here, and they're going to be talking about me, not Matt Harvey.
Well, it was Thor tonight for the Mets. That's what they call Syndergaard. Tomorrow it's the Dark Knight. Down to third, but foul off the bat of Padias. By the way, Marlon Byrd not in the lineup tonight, and we asked him before the game. He said, "No, I'm okay. Just they want to give me a day." So
you got
he's okay.
seven plate appearances last night.
Yep. They add up. Big swing.
Good inning.
Good inning by Adcock. 1, 2, 3. Last roundup for the Reds. The big guys coming up. Otto Frazier Booth. Tuesday, it's the 2015 Women's World Cup semis as Alex Morgan and Team USA take on Germany with a trip to the final on the line. Coverage begins Tuesday at 6 Eastern, only on your local Fox station, and also streaming live on Fox Sports Go. That'll be Channel 19 in Cincinnati. United States against Germany. Big win tonight, and they'll get two of their key players back for that game against Germany. And here are still power tool performer, not just one, but this whole Mets bullpen has been pretty solid, Chris, and they'll turn it over to, I guess if you were going to name an MVP of the Mets for the first half, it'd be this guy. He has been outstanding after taking over just before the season started as their closer. Familia's been
extremely hard thrower. 97 is the average fastball that he has. You know, one of the reasons why that bullpen is so good, George, that they have the fewest innings pitched of any bullpen in the National League. So the less you're exposed, the better you are, because especially when it comes to your bullpen, you get those guys out there too much, they start breaking down, the numbers go awry.
Here's Joey. Votto flied out, struck out, flied out. Familia pitched for the first time in a week yesterday in Milwaukee, strained his right groin in a successful save situation a week ago and really took the whole week off and pitched yesterday to pick up a save, so he's going back-to-back days down low.
Isn't it weird what a couple of years can do? I mean, you just go back, there's Daryl Siciliani playing left field. You go back to about 2 or 3 years, and when somebody comes out there throwing 98 miles an hour, oh,
yeah,
it's worth a comment. Now everybody seemingly throws 98 miles an hour. Where will it end?
Votto fouls it off. I mean, athletes in general are bigger, stronger, faster today, aren't they?
They are. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, they're measuring the fastball differently now than they did back in the old days, even the days of Nolan Ryan. They're measuring it out of the hand rather than in front of home plate.
And in the old days, too, very often those measurements were coming from a handheld gun behind home plate. Now, I mean, it's so amazing mechanically how right they are. I mean, Nolan Ryan threw hard, and I'm sure
you better believe
Nolan
it.
Ryan today is still going to be 101. Another look, just wide. Votto lives for another pitch. 3 balls, 2 strikes to Joey as the Reds try to get the potential tying run on base here in the 9th. Votto, Frazier, and Bruce. On the stretch, Familia. Down to Duda. He'll take it himself, 1 away. Here comes Todd. Frazier popped to the first baseman, bounced back to the pitcher, and then singled to left. The final numbers on Syndergaard: 8 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, 5 strikeouts, no walks.
Last night, Todd Frazier hit a home run off of Archimedes Caminero, who threw that fastball at 99 miles an hour. So if Familia can just get it up there a little faster, he would be in that hitting range for Frazier.
They estimated it left home plate at about 104 miles an hour. Broken bat down to short. Long throw in the dirt and in time. Nice scoop by Duda at the other end, and the Reds are down to their final out.
Yeah, Duda's the one that really finished off that play there, because it looked like Frazier was going to get down the line, and you're going to have to rush your throw. Flores gets it in the right direction, and Duda does the scoop.
So here comes Jay. Bruce singled, flied to right, and struck out.
He's another guy can run into a fastball right here. He's been really good at hitting pitches that have been left up in the zone.
Setting up, down, and away is Plawecki. Fouled off for strike 1. 2 runs, only 2 hits for the Mets. No errors. A run, 5 hits, and an error for the Reds. Brandon Phillips, 1 for 4 on this night. Familia trying to close it out. Like Jekyll and Hyde have the Mets been. That's a bouncer behind second. Herrera has it. And the Mets, after going 0 for 7 on a road trip and winning the final game of their road trip, come back home and do what they've been doing all year. They are now 27-11 at home. And 11-26 on the road. Familia gets his 2nd straight save in his 2nd straight day. The big swing came from Curtis Granderson in the first, and a triple by Herrera, followed by 3 walks, proved to be the Reds' undoing. Final score in game 1 of this series: the Mets win it 2-1 over the Reds before a crowd of over 28,000, 28,109. A whole lot more to talk about. We'll be back with more after this.